Now, when you talk about AI, it freaks everybody out. And this is a conversation about the future of AI and talking about some things about religion. And this is the type of dialogue that really freaks everybody out. Now, if you do not know Yuval, he is a very famous author. He wrote the very popular book *Sapiens*, which I read years ago. Very, very good book. Really interesting framing of kind of just Homo sapiens and our role and everything. But he's a controversial guy because he's very famous. And I have found the tallest blade of grass gets cut the easiest. And this is what happens when you become that famous. Everybody else, when you say controversial things, generally people don't care about you because nobody knows who you are. And so this conversation I thought was really interesting. It was with the Wall Street Journal talking about technology. And he says something very controversial. And I just wanted to talk about it because when you talk about AI and religion, it tends to spark things because really there's all these really hot takes around AI. It's going to replace jobs. And, there's this general dialogue around, when we came from, you had this huge change when people were kind of, in caves, and then we become farmers, and we become farmers. The Industrial Revolution changed things. And now we're in another Industrial Revolution where maybe AI is going to displace jobs the same way as farmers were displaced when we had to go into factories. And we're in another type of moment like this. And there's a lot of kind of doom statements. And Yuval says something here that's kind of a doom statement. And I think it's interesting to talk about because we love to speculate. Now, to be fair, he is asked to speculate. And I think he has a new book out where he speculates about the future. And this is what speculation is. It's throwing stuff out, and maybe it's true. Maybe the past can inform our future, and maybe 80% of the time it's true. But there's a lot about AI we don't know, but I wanted to reflect on what he says here.
We are going to see AI changing even things like religion.
How?
At least religions which are based on texts, like Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, they give ultimate authority to the text, not to any human being. Now, until today, humans were nevertheless the main authority in these religions because the texts could not speak.
I find this a really interesting kind of summarization of what faith is, that it's just a knowledge base, meaning it's just facts. Therefore, you go to a church or a temple or a mosque because of how smart the person is. And it's a very scientific thinking of what faith is. Faith is, yes, there are counterfactuals that make up our faith, but do you go to a church or a local faith assembly based off of how smart that person is on that? Or is there something more of why? But I find it's a very atheistic like thinking of what faith is. It's like, oh, you just go there because that's the smartest person. I think there's more reasons, but I thought it was an interesting summarization of why we go to church and why do we believe in a God. But I know that's not his point. But again, he's being asked something in this dialogue. But anyways, let's continue.
The Bible could not interpret itself. The Bible could not answer your questions. So you needed a human being as an intermediary. What happens when you have an AI text that can speak for itself? No Jewish rabbi can know all the texts of Judaism because there are too many of them. For the first time in history, there is something on the planet that is able to remember every single word in every writing of every rabbi in the last 2,000 years and talk back to you and explain and defend its view.
One of the things that I think I understand kind of conceptually where he's going here, but this already happened with the internet. The internet allowed us to have access to everything. I could go to my Logos Bible software, or I could go early on to gotquestions.org. And I remember how revolutionary that was for me, that I can ask it any question. And him saying that, having this agent, this super intelligence is a game changer because you no longer need to go to your local pastor, priest, rabbi, imam to be able to ask your question. You can just ask a chat bot and it will deliver an answer. I think, yes, that's revolutionary, but it was already here. That's what Google was. And I think it's missing the point of why do we go to those people? It's not just based off of their knowledge set. There's much more. Like, for example, people come to me, and if you don't, I'm actually a pastor. People come to me and ask me pastoral questions, not because they think I'm the smartest person on the earth, or there's no way they think I'm an expert. I'm just a little farther down the road. Yes, I might have a BA in Bible and a master's in theology, but they understand pretty quickly that my expertise isn't really in theology. There are tons of people that are smarter than me. And again, there's unbelievers that are more maybe knowledgeable in text, but there's a worldview that I believe that we align with, and I might be able to provide some clarity on how they are to live according to that. And so I think it's interesting that this, you know, again, this shift happened when the Bible was able to be replicated, in text form with the Gutenberg press kind of technical feat. Now everybody could have it there. Then the internet just brought access to way more resources, and so I don't know if AI is this another breakthrough here. I think there will be breakthroughs, but I think this truth has been around since the early '90s, really. And so, but at least that's how I see it.
So I have friends who are now working on building religious AIs that are meant to either augment or replace human religious leaders, especially in text-based religions. If the religion is not based on texts, it doesn't give authority to a text, it's a different story.
Okay, but I go, and we're going to question.
I love that the reporter asked this question, because you could tell there's a sense of, like, what? Like, really? I'm not going to do this anymore? She takes it to a personal way.
Next, I'm going to come first to Mattia Moore, if you want to raise your hand, and we'll get you a microphone. But I go and talk to my pastor at our church when I am going through a difficult time. I am never going to talk to ChatGPT like.
Now, I think she gets this. She's making, I understand her point, because it's true. When I'm in need, when I need an answer to a question, I need two parts. I need, I need wisdom, and I need some facts. And sometimes you don't need a world expert, or you don't need the cold facts. You need it told you in a correct way. And what she's saying is, like, I would never go to ChatGPT. Now, the truth is it's very clear that ChatGPT and AI are really good, can be good coaches in tough moments. So I kind of disagree. Like, there are cases where if I need can you give me who wrote Isaiah, and you give me all the cases of multiple Isaiahs, one Isaiah, and you cite all these things, and ChatGPT can be really good for that, or AI could be really good for that. But there are going to be cases where I'm going to want to talk to somebody, and I'm going to want to have more of an inflection and a personality and them understanding more. And I think this is where people underplay the power of the human brain. And really, I believe God's made something way more complicated than AI ever will be. And it's just the human body, the brain, the synapses, everything we are a supercomputer. We're going to have limits to what we can access, but there's something very unique in who we are. There is this, the visual, or the example I like to compare this to is, if I want to, like, I'm a Lakers fan, or I'm an NBA fan, and if I want to read a take on what happened in a basketball game or a Laker game, I can read the facts from AI, like, here are the facts. Lakers lost here. This is what happened. Or I could go read or listen to my favorite, sports anchor take, whoever it is, and I can read it. Like, I listen to the Bill Simmons podcast. Now, Bill Simmons is a world expert at basketball. He's not going to be the most knowledgeable person. There's things he doesn't know. He doesn't sometimes understand the cap rules and so forth, and they joke about that. But, like, I listen to him because of his perspective on things, his very human perspective on things. And the question is can AI replace that? And I think AI is going to be really good for information and even some coaching. I think that there are cases that there are private things that I may not want to talk to my priest about, or my pastor, but maybe I can ask AI about this. I think it can. But to say it's going to fully replace it, I think really misses the mark. So I understand her point here, and it's true, but I think that there are going to be cases where AI can, and this is why I think it's really important that religious leaders create AIs that theologically align with what we believe, because AI is going to be this neutral thing that's just going to go with the way of the world. And I think we do need to have knowledge bases that align with us. And you can do this with tools today. But anyways, let's listen to this last bit, and then I'll close it up.
But it's an individual choice.
So you think some will?
I know that already millions of people do it. I mean, I know people who go for now AIs to get psychological counseling.
Yes.
That AI is their best friend, like a teenager.
This is totally true. And I actually think this is a good thing. I think having young people and people generally more access to ask questions about what's going on. Because again, I believe in a God that brings us into light, not into darkness. And we need people challenging things, asking questions. I think you see this in the Muslim world, where people are asking, wait, is this true? And challenging it. Acts 17:11, Paul calls the Bereans more noble because he asks questions when he delivers them this truth. I think it's good for young people and people to have access to information, to be able to ask challenging questions. And I think sometimes it's hard to ask your parents or somebody some question, but if I can ask it in in our version, I say our version, but my age, like I would do it in an incognito window. I would ask Google a question. Well, now I could just ask AI something about something physically, something mentally. And I think this is good. Now it can be dangerous because AI can also, there's this trend in AI, in a lot of these models where they tend to be persuasive and agree with you, and they don't necessarily point out where your thinking is wrong, especially if it goes into a larger worldview. And that's where the danger is. This is why I think we need models that align with us theologically.
Something happened in school, they tell the AI what happened and ask for advice about relationships.
So let me get back to.
So I think that you can watch the whole interview. I'll put a link in the description. But I think this idea that AI is going to replace religion, I think is kind of funny. I don't think people go to church because the local pastor, priest, or whoever is a world expert. I think they align with a belief that's deep inside of us. Yes, they know some things, but ultimately you go there because you believe it's true and you need some help, and you don't need more facts. You need more wisdom, which is skillful living, which is what a human is. A human is a person who has flesh and is living this out, and you can say like, oh yeah, the Bible says this, but this is hard. And I think this is where AI is going to come up real short, because AI is going to not be able to provide skillful living. They might be able to provide skillful facts, but they're not actually going to know. And then more importantly, you go to a local church or expression of faith, not just to learn facts, but to interact with other people. And I think it's interesting that this is a very atheist approach to why people believe in things and go to faith assemblies. We go there for much more. And so I am not worried about AI replacing religion or replacing God. I think if anything, we're going to see AI more and more in its gaps, and this promise of self-awareness in AI and this super intelligence, the singular moment they call it. I think people don't realize how far off that is and how potentially even unrealistic it is. But check out the full conversation. It's really interesting. If you agree or disagree, you got questions, post below as a comment. I would love to dialogue. I find this conversation interesting. It doesn't scare me. I know it might scare you, but I love learning more about this. So I hope this encouraged you. Drop any questions you have or disagreements in the comment section.